The Bible says that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and that He spoke them literally out of nothing. He doesn't need anything to start with, He just speaks it into existence. Evolution says everything came from nothing also, but through its own power. Somehow there was an explosion, and there were particles that were created, and the gases became increased in variety, and then they condensed, and somehow became, planets and moons and stars, and somehow just keep magically getting more complex and amazing. But ultimately it all boils down to, where did we get all this stunning and amazingly complex information that covers every last function of the human body and all the animals on the entire planet? Let's look at 11 reasons why evolution can't explain the underwater world. Reason number 1, it's just plain mathematically illogical. If all we had were 1 or 2 types of fish, maybe a couple of plants, then you could almost understand why they think that things evolve. It would still be mathematically crazy, because if evolution, in other words random processes, were driving this, then just to get one short protein, 150 amino acids long, it'd be 1 over 10 to the 77th power. And yet we need all kinds of proteins that govern every last thing our body does. But what makes it even more mathematically illogical from an evolutionary standpoint is that the complexity was there from the beginning. If you look at a geological time chart, they're going to start off with the supposedly simplest creatures and work their way up to the most complex, because after all, we're starting with nothing and we have to get to complex where we are today. But are these little guys, the trilobites, the very bottom rung of the chart, are these really actually that simple? Just like a complex building being built, you have to have the foundation put in place, and then the girders. You can't do painting before you've got sheetrock. The windows have to go in, the exhaust, the plumbing. Every step has to come in just the right turn. The same way with a trilobite. In its development, you have to have the structure in place. You have to have the code that's going to determine how long each of the legs are going to be, so you don't end up with one 5 inches long and the rest of them short. You have to have the heart, the lungs, the plumbing, the things that are going to clean the blood, oxygenate the blood. You have to have something controlling the shape of the head, the location of the brain, where the eyes go. There has to be information to control the thickness of the shell, the way the scales fit together so that it can curl up in a ball when it gets scared. There has to be information controlling the curve of the legs and the fact that they go off on each side so that they're useful. There has to be information controlling its reproductive system, giving it the wisdom and the ability to procreate. Every last system has to be triggered, built, and stopped at just the right time. And I am literally just scratching the surface of the number of systems required and the amount of genetic information required to pull this off. So yeah, it's not just the complex, stunning eyes that on some of them allow them to see all the way down the back of them because they have 360 vision. Everything about this complex, and I might add adorable creature, speaks mathematical absurdity to think that this thing happened by chance. The reason this thing's at the bottom of the fossil record is because when the fountains of the deep broke up, these were some of the first animals to get buried. So in the beginning, God created the trilobite, and every other one of these vast amounts of crazy, colorful fish, coral, blues with yellow tails, purple, orange, and pink, stripes, polka dots, and every time you add even one, you're adding mathematical impossibility on top of mathematical impossibility, because every one of these is different. You could do a National Geographic on any single one of these animals or plants that you find in the ocean, because their ways of feeding and finding each other and reproduction and the ways they interact, it gets literally exponential when you think about the mathematical likelihood that this could have happened by chance. So, if you want to believe that, you are welcome to, but it's easier and more logical to believe that God created this. Reason number 2, speed and agility. You can't take for granted the unbelievable speed and agility of fish and other animals, but in particular, their ability to swim that close to each other and that fast and turn on a dime. I mean, I could literally watch this all day. It's very similar to birds. Who changes their mind? How do they all of a sudden all do this? There are literally no words for this. I think the only appropriate thing is to just say wow and leave it at that. But fish and birds aren't the only animals in the animal kingdom that are known for speed. My favorite, I would say, is crabs. I think these things are hilarious. And they're running sideways. Can you run sideways that fast? By the way, the fastest crab in the world can run 11 feet per second. We're not seeing animals that are barely getting by. We're seeing perfection. So speed and agility have to be considered when you think about whether evolution in its random processes could have pulled this off. Reason number 3, knowledge and complexity. It is mind-boggling the abilities that animals have. Look at these crabs, for example, their ability to build a little home. Who taught them this? This is something that God built into them. They came factory loaded like this. But the complexity also is unbelievable. Think about the joints, the antenna, their eyes, their ability to sense things, their ability to breathe underwater. I was watching this little guy walk along and he stops all of a sudden and as if he's found something to eat. And so I looked it up and sure enough, they can sense food through the ends of their pinchers. Those pointy little things. But nothing takes the cake like the sand bubbler crab. These guys are not only industrious, they are amazing. They eat by shoveling all this sand through their mouth, and then what little they can find of edible organic stuff, they keep, and then they spit out the sand. And they are, like I said, unbelievably productive. They just ball after ball after ball. Unbelievable. And that's the way God designed nature to be. To stun us, amuse us, to drop our jaws so that we look at this stuff and we come away thinking, wow, he is amazing to have created this for us. So this big playground should be something that we go out and enjoy and be awed about God's character by. And learning something about nature is supposed to comfort us about God, because knowing that this little guy, he waits out the dangerous high tide inside of an air bubble, it lets us know God's got this. He's thought this all through. There isn't anything taking him by surprise. Reason number 4, beauty and grace. With every characteristic we add in, again, we're going orders of magnitude in more illogicalness that you could have had this stuff accidentally happen. And beauty is another example of it. The colors, vivid, and these funny, fluffy little tail thingies. There's incredible shades of yellow and polka dots, stripes that shimmer like gold. Exquisite uses of color and design as if someone was having a really good time with a paintbrush. But it's not just beauty, it's also, like I said, grace. Look at the way this turtle swims. It's just poetry in motion, elegance. Is all of that by chance? Normally when we look around us, it's very easy to tell when something is man-made or it had a designer. It's very easy to see that the complexity of something or the beauty of something even indicates that somebody's hand was in this. But we turn to nature and all of a sudden people turn that off and view it as an accident. But beauty and grace are definitely examples of the hand of God in nature. Something that stunningly beautiful is literally almost mesmerizing in how they swim and the design and how they flow together. Only God could do that. Let's look at reason number 5, symmetry and design. Many people love to pick up shells, fascinated by the design, the spiral, the variety, the color. It's fascinating, but what they don't often think about is the math that's hidden all through nature, often called the golden ratio or Fibonacci sequence. Once you've seen it, it's literally everywhere. You'll find it in the spiral of seeds and flowers, pine cones, plants of every kind. The numbers that make up the math sequence are 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. You add the last two numbers and they make up the next one. Then you add those last two numbers and they make up the next one. It's what gives us the beautiful spirals throughout nature. And again, it's the impress or stamp of intelligent design that God put through all of nature. But beyond symmetry, it's just plain design. Whether it's the 5 even arms of a starfish or the beautiful symmetry of the polka dots on the arms, it all indicates that somebody made this. If this were all through evolution, in other words, through mutation, chance, accident, you'd have a lot more ugliness. You wouldn't have such a tremendous amount of symmetry and beauty and design, and you see it from the microscopic level right on up. It's in the design of how an animal can filter large amounts of water for tiny little plankton and things like that and be able to feed itself. It's in the design of the gills, the fact that they can breathe water and be able to sustain themselves by getting oxygen out of it. I can't breathe underwater. It's stuff we take for granted, but it's everywhere around us. It's the ability to pull yourself up into a little shell or dig down into the sand and not scratch your eyeballs, to be able to find food. It's just mind-boggling when you look around you and you start looking for symmetry, design, complexity, beauty, all of these things. Number 6, interrelated and interdependent systems. Now, there's a lot of these systems out here, so we're only going to cover a couple of them, but it's amazing how this works. Like these fish, for example, they get a free dinner, and the turtle gets a free cleaning. They're eating little parasites and things that, grow or attach themselves to the turtle, and the turtle's more than happy to make use of this, and so are they. So this happens a lot of times. Manta rays, for example, they have these little guys that swim underneath them. They get, safety from predators. They get a easier way of traveling because there's less of a draft right there, and they also get enhanced feeding opportunities. So let's look at sea anemones. This is downright amazing. There are more than 1,000 anemone species that live in the ocean, and there's only 10 species that have this amazing relationship you've probably heard of. There's only some pairs of these anemones and clownfish that live together, but those that do are highly dependent upon each other for survival. There's like this mutual protection from predators and exchange of nutrients that goes on. So whereas the average fish would swim amongst these tentacles and just die from getting stung, these guys don't. Another freak of nature or evidence of design. Number 7, playfulness. Everybody's seen dolphins or other animals that literally seem to be playing and having fun, even horses with a ball and unusual animals. But dolphins will race boats or just play together in the water. They'll even play in aquariums with toys of different kinds that they're given. And it's not just them, it's even the big boys. I mean, the really biggest of animals. They literally like to just play and splash around. And this is how God meant nature to be. It's not just for our entertainment, it's for their entertainment, because He meant all of creation to be pleasurable to themselves and each other. Reason number 8, bizarre and amazing. This is so much fun. I don't even know what this thing is. I don't know if it's got a head or a brain somewhere. I can't even see with the human eye what this thing is fishing for and pulling in, but obviously it knows when it's got something and it's worth sticking its arm in its mouth. This is what I mean. Every inch of the planet is covered by things that we could literally study for years and just scratch the surface of what they're doing and how they interrelate to the world around them, how they're designed. Everything from brain corals to sea slugs with stripes and orange antennae, blue starfish, eels wriggling around. The world is a bizarre, amazing place. Fluffy coral, I guess these are eels, but look at the polka dots. Simply hilarious. And then jellyfish. There's so many different types. Yes, they're elegant, beautiful, it's a little bit questionable, but definitely amazing creatures. Everywhere you look, there are just simply bizarre and amazing things without number. So wonder after this. Ask yourself, is all of this a mistake or an accident through mutation and long periods of time, or was this by design? Reason number 9, camouflage and abilities. When you start talking about abilities, you got to look at the octopus. They're just famous for their brilliance, intelligence and ability to hide and escape from small little tiny holes. They're just literally amazing creatures. Watch this one take and change its colors as it goes to hide in this little hole here. Beautiful. Not that much of a color change, but I'll show you some more. They're capable of changing colors in many different ways. This one's just changing from a lighter brown to a darker brown black. Well, watch this one accentuate its polka dots. It's graceful and beautiful as it curls up to hide. I find myself saying amazing and unbelievable frequently when I look at nature. But looking at the octopus, its ability is unbelievable. And it's not just octopuses. It's the squids, the cuttlefish, anything in this family has thousands of these little chromatophores cells underneath their skin. And so by squeezing them, they can control the color rapidly and even the texture, they said. So while this one tries to figure out what color scheme it wants to adopt, I wonder if it's female. I'm sitting here in awe that this it has the ability to do this. By the way, check out that gorgeous turquoise fish. But the fact that this is just one of many animals throughout the planet, I mean, just under the ocean, and it's got this kind of ability, there's just too much complexity, too much design. This isn't mistake. This isn't chance. This isn't mutation. There's no amount of time that could make this work. They accuse Christians of believing in fairy tales and unicorns, but when you look at this level of complexity, we're well beyond that with this kind of stuff. This is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Before we finish with camouflage and abilities, though, we have to look at seahorses. There's 54 different kinds of them, but these things are absolutely amazing. They have such an ability to camouflage themselves that scientists have trouble sometimes identifying them. They can change their color, just like the squids and octopus. They can grow things, literally grow their own knobs in order to blend in like this pygmy seahorse does. It's like, oh, I think I need another little knob right here. Well, maybe one over here. So he just grows them. Like, that's crazy. And it's also amazing, they don't have teeth or stomachs. They inhale food through their snouts, and then it goes through their digestive tract so quickly that they eat 30 to 50 times a day. In fact, the babies can eat up to 3,000 pieces of food a day. Reason number 10, delicateness and durability. Now, you take one look at these, just seemingly beautiful, delicate little fish and that rugged coral like right there, and it's amazing that they can get down in there. But to see these things rapidly swoosh down in amongst that coral without getting hurt is unbelievable. But from the beautiful translucent little tentacles and small pretty fish to the big whales that can travel as far as 7,000 miles round trip in migrations that are fast and nonstop, to the deepest dive that one has been measured to go to, which was 1.86 miles deep, these things are designed to live where they live. Finally, reason number 11 is there's lessons that we can learn from nature. I believe that after sin, God altered things enough so that he could constantly teach us. In this case, warning us that just because it's beautiful doesn't mean it's not dangerous. There's many things that we can get ourselves into that seem enticing on the outside but lead us down paths that we would really rather not take if we knew the end results. Also, things like oysters, being able to make pearls. When something gets stuck in here and it just keeps coating it with something more and more beautiful, we have that ability through God's grace to make even difficult situations that we're going through become something that's beautiful in our lives and to the glory of God. And all of nature can teach us if we just read his word and let him teach us. So to end this, I just want to quote you my favorite quote. Keep your wants, your joys, your sorrows, your cares, and your fears before God. You cannot burden him. You cannot weary him. He who numbers the hairs of your head is not indifferent to the wants of his children. The Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy, James 5:11. His heart of love is touched by your sorrows and even by our utterances of them. Take to him everything that perplexes the mind. Nothing is too great for him to bear, for he holds up worlds. He rules over all the affairs of the universe. Nothing that in any way concerns our peace is too small for him to notice. There is no chapter in our experience too dark for him to read. There is no perplexity too difficult for him to unravel. No calamity can befall the least of his children. No anxiety harass the soul. No joy, cheer, no sincere prayer escape the lips of which our Heavenly Father is unobservant, or in which he takes no immediate interest. He healeth the broken in heart and bindeth up their wounds, Psalm 147:3. The relations between God and each soul are as distinct and full as if there were not another soul upon the earth to share his watch care, not another soul for whom he gave his beloved Son. So yes, although I do believe there's many reasons that make evolution mathematically illogical and impossible and just crazy on every level, it's really just sitting and absorbing, looking at nature and letting it proclaim the glory of God that tells me quotes like that are true. And it's my own experience in my life that tells me that this quote is true. Let nature bring the Bible to life so that you can see the living evidence of the fact that he spoke things into existence, he upholds all things by the word of his power, and the God that's parading the galaxies through the universe is growing the mushroom in your backyard. He's got this, you guys. Blessings, my friends.